Hey there and happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for making the time to watch this replay. I am so excited to continue the monthly theme for July, which is all around content creation and content strategy. Last week, I demystified what content creation is so that you could get out of it feeling like something you have to do and instead become something that you really enjoy. And today, I'm talking about how to create a content strategy. Now, if you don't know me or don't know me well, my name is Carrie Price. I'm a brand messaging coach, helping ambitious service-based business owners find and own the words to stand out, be heard, and make your message roar. Hey, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me live today. It's so great to see you. Hey, Tanya. Hello, hello. Thank you guys for making the time to join me live. Now, today I want to talk about how to create a content strategy. Hey, Cheryl, so good to see you. Thank you for joining me. And before I do that, let me just say, content strategy doesn't mean you can never be spontaneous in creating content. I'm inspired every day by something that makes me think about a new content idea. So it's not about that. But what it is about is not always sort of flying by the seat of your pants, right? It's about putting some structure or a plan in place. So having a content strategy is all about having a plan. But just like a lot of things that I share with you, a plan is not like put you in a box and doesn't give you any flexibility. It's really about having a guide. It's about knowing that you want to create content with purpose, content for a reason, not content for the sake of content, right? And one of the key things to judge that against is your content in alignment with your message. So when you have your messaging foundation in place, you know who you're talking to, what they care about, what you do, and why anyone should care about what you do. All of that starts to help shape and drive the content that you're putting out there. Remember, content is marketing, right? The goal of marketing, which is made up of content that you're putting out there, is to control and shape the brand, your brand, right? And remember, your brand is your reputation as it's perceived in the mind of the market. So when you're thinking about creating content, you want to be thinking, what do I want people to think about me? What do I want people to know about me? Hey, good morning, Janet. Thank you so much for joining me live today. So good to have you here. So why is it important to have a strategy? Because one, it's really stressful to feel like you're always winging it with your content, right? Again, totally room for spontaneity. You could always throw something in the mix that you're inspired to want to create. But having a strategy, really it's about having a plan, actually gets your creative juices flowing more easily. That's what I find. Everything builds up from my message. All the content that I create is all about helping you make your message roar. Content is about helping you make your message roar. You need to have something to put out there. It's the way for you to share your message, right? So one of the things to be thinking about when you're starting to develop a content strategy or a content plan is, what's your goal? And what are things that you can measure? So for example, if one of your goals is to increase email subscribers, all of last month we talked about email marketing. But if one of your goals is to increase your email subscription, because number of email subscribers, because that's one of the ways you want to do marketing, then what kind of content do you need to put out there to encourage people to want to trust their email address with you, right? So what is your goal? What are you trying to measure? Now, ultimately, the goal of any of your content that you put out there is to build know, like, and trust. It's about building that brand reputation. People have to know you exist, determine if they relate to you or not. You have to stand out in the market as a one of a kind, with a one of a kind message, and why people are going to want to choose you, right? Ultimately, through your reliability of content, every time you show up with content, every time people encounter you, you are seen as that reliable expert, right? That's the goal of your content. So when we take a step back and we think about content strategy, content marketing, content creation, the words by themselves sometimes can make people feel really overwhelmed. This is all about marketing. This is all about sharing your message. Hey, Corinne, so good to see you. Thank you for joining me live. So what should your goal be? Establishing yourself as an expert, helping your ideal clients know what you can do for them and why they should care about you, right? Your goal is to get your message heard. So let me share with you a few tips for what to be thinking about as you create your content strategy. Again, let's just call it a plan. Let's just take the big scary words out of it that might be intimidating you if you're feeling overwhelmed by the idea of creating content, right? So get really clear about who you're trying to talk to, what it is, the pains that you solve for them, what it is you do for them uniquely, and why anyone should care. Those are the things that should be going in your content. Sound familiar? These are all the things that you need in your messaging foundation. So once you have that, that's why I say, you'll hear me say a lot if you followed me for any length of time, that once you have your messaging foundation in place, you see the world through your message. Everything becomes ideas for content because everything is about who is it that I'm serving. You get really laser focused on that. What is it that they need help with? What do I do to solve that problem? And why should they care about that? I can talk about anything almost. I have yet to be stumped by somebody giving me a topic and me not being able to turn it into valuable messaging related content. And that's what I want for you. Then content creation doesn't become this big overwhelming thing. It's the plan though of how you want to communicate with people. Right? Where do you want to show up? What kind of content do you want to put out there? And I'm going to talk next week a little bit more about the different types of content and how to choose between different kinds of content, written versus video, live versus recorded, social media versus blog post, all of that. We're going to break all that down next week in more detail. But be thinking about, how do you show up as an expert? What is it about your message and who you're talking to that you want people to know? And make sure it's relatable to your ideal client, one of a kind, so it doesn't sound like anybody else, sound or look like, right? I don't do anything around visual branding. I'm all about your message, but your visual brand is equally as important, that you want to make sure you stand out and don't look like anyone else. You want it to be actionable. You want to know what you want people to do with your content. Do you want them to read another article? Do you want to drive them to a blog? Do you want them to sign up for a freebie or a webinar or a masterclass? What do you want them to do, right? Make your content actionable and make your content reliable. Every single time you put content out there, it should be establishing you as an expert, like building that credibility, right? Thank you, Cheryl, for the hearts. So that's what you want to do every time. So when it comes to the actual plan, oh, Cheryl, this is so good. Cheryl says the visual brand should be the mirror of your brand message. Yeah, Cheryl, that's so good. Yeah, Cheryl says that's a huge thing for me as a designer. I've always said that when you want to work with a graphic designer, the very best thing that you could do for them is to have your messaging foundation built so that they can bring that to life. That's what a brand designer, a graphic designer is trying to do, is give you a visual representation of your message. But you've got to have your message clear so they've got something to work with, right? Tell me, Cheryl, like, isn't your job so much easier when people are clear about their message, who they serve, what their one-of-a-kind message is, all of that, right? Like, your job as a designer becomes easier. Corinne, yes, Sierra is a great designer. Cheryl says amen. Yeah. Karine, I totally agree. Sierra's awesome. You guys know she's my graphic designer as well. I think all graphic designers, though, as Cheryl can attest to, all graphic designers, okay, I'm just gonna say this. All graphic designers worth their money, worth their weight, want to bring your message to life, right? The ones who design what they want or even what you like aren't helping you in your business. Okay, we're digressing. Cheryl, comparison on how much it makes it simpler. Yeah. So you need to get really clear about what your message is so that you can have that brought to life visually by the designer that you're working with. But when you are looking at creating a content plan, this is where a lot of people get really overwhelmed and they think like, oh, I don't want to be in a box. I can't commit to doing the thing that many times. Cheryl says, oh, thank you for saying that. You're so welcome. I don't know what I said. I'm sorry for the delay with the Facebook Live, but I'm so thankful to have you here with your perspective, Cheryl, because having designers' perspective on what messaging, how important messaging is to everything in your business is gold. So I love that. I love having you here. Okay, so when you're creating your plan, right, we're not going to call this strategy. We're not going to like overwhelm ourselves with what does it mean to have a content strategy in place, except that I do want you to understand that it's about being strategic. It's about being smart and thoughtful. It is out there. Oh, Cheryl says that a designer worth their salt will want to represent your messaging. Yeah, I do believe there are people who don't. Anyway, topic for another day. Yes. So yeah, Cheryl, we could go on about this all day. Yeah, we're going to stick with content. I'm so glad you're learning a lot too. Okay. When you are looking at creating your plan, where are you going to show up? Really, a content strategy is about where are you going to show up? What do you want people to know? And how often are you going to do that? And what I see happen a lot is people get overly excited and overly aggressive in what they can do. And so they come out with a bang. I'm going to do a Facebook Live every day, and I'm going to do 5 tweets a day, and I'm going to show up on Instagram, and I'm going to write 2 blog posts a week, and great intentions, right? You're trying to get visibility everywhere, but what happens? You're lucky if you can sustain that for a week or 2, because now what happens is you get stuck and you're like, how do I create that much unique content every day, every week? And what my suggestion for you is when you're looking at your content plan is to be realistic and start with something you know. Reliably show up every single time. Karine says you can't be good if you do everywhere. Yeah. It's just like everything I talk about with your message, right? You can't be all things to all people, right? You can't do everything for everybody. You need to focus in your message. You need to focus in who you serve. You need to focus on the content that you're putting out there and the way that you're marketing. It doesn't mean that you can't build and grow as you get things in place, but I won't say the worst thing that you can do, but it's not really great to say, I'm going to show up on Facebook Live every day and you can see me on Twitter 5 times a day and you can, and say all this and then not show up, because now you're not reliable. Now you break trust. And remember, it's all about people know, like, and trusting you, right? So start off with something you know you can deliver without fail. Tanya says, yeah, you got to work in billable stuff. Absolutely. Now, maybe you don't have a lot of billable clients yet. Don't set yourself up with a content or marketing plan that you can't deliver once you start getting clients, right? Karine says, master one thing at a time. Yeah, totally believe that. Now, that doesn't mean only be in one place ever. I'm going to talk about that here in just a moment briefly. I've talked about this in the past as well, but start with something realistic. So for example, I have been going live right here on my business page every Tuesday for 1.5 years. Maybe I'd have to look back. To be honest, I should have checked to see that. But you can find me live on my page right here every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Now, do I feel like maybe I want to do more Facebook Lives? Sometimes. But I go live inside my free group, The Messaging Den. I go live in other places, in other people's groups, other speaking opportunities. So I do have ideas for other videos for my business page and things, but I don't want to add them until I know I can reliably and consistently commit to them. But I am here every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, right? Yeah, Corinne says that's consistency. Yeah. So I show up every week right here. I show up in my group every day. I am in there in some way every day for my Facebook, every day for my clients, right? I'm in other people's Facebook groups consistently, not every day. And not a whole bunch of them. I have a very small number of Facebook groups that I engage in outside of my own. Now, I started to experiment with Twitter and with Instagram, and I wasn't totally consistent with everything that I could do there. So I've pulled back a little bit. I still show up, but with less frequency, but consistency every single week. Yeah, Janet says consistency is extremely important. Yeah, so don't create a plan that is going to stress you out from day to day, where it's like, oh my gosh, I said I was going to go live day 14, you're like, I'm tired and burnt out. I don't know what to talk about, right? Don't set yourself up for that. Space it out. Even if you think you have 30 days of content, well, what if you do that once a week? Now you have 30 weeks of content. And I'm going to talk more. I think I want to do this in 2 weeks. I want to talk generally about your content plan and content strategy. Next week, we're going to talk about types of content. And then I'm going to loop back again 2 weeks from now to talk more about repurposing content, which gives you more leverageability in your content. So it's coming this month, I promise. This whole month is dedicated to content strategy, and content creation, okay? But I think I'm going to come back to that in a couple weeks. Here's another thing, though, that might get you started as you're thinking about your content plan. Let's call it the content plan. Maybe you try days of the week are different kinds of content or different themes. I'll tell you, Tuesdays for me in my business, this is social media day. I do serve clients on Tuesdays as well, so I have coaching calls and things like that. But around any coaching calls that are booked, I dedicate this entire day to being on social media. I don't do any work on my business. Like I'm not writing content for myself. I'm not planning, future things. I am showing up everywhere I want to show up every Tuesday. And to be honest, for a long time, I had guilt over that. I was like, oh, I didn't get any work done today. But showing up and doing marketing and being consistent in doing that is part of our job as business owners. And now I fully embrace Tuesdays. In fact, my sister and I, we check in with each other every morning, and every Tuesday she wishes me a happy social media day. She's like, go out there, have fun, meet new people, engage, add value. That's what I do every single Tuesday. So I choose a theme day, right? But you could take that further as you plan different days of the week. And maybe, on Fridays, as you're winding down the week, what are the things that your market might want to hear, your audience, your ideal client, that might help them reflect on the week? What can you post on Mondays that help people look ahead to the week? So think about the days of the week. If you did that, if you just have like 5 kinds of content that you post, in a month, you only have to create 4 of each of those kinds. So be thinking about planning in a way that actually minimizes the amount of content you have to create. And again, in a couple weeks, I'm going to do the whole Facebook Live is going to be on repurposing. I'm going to share a little bit about my own content strategy, my own content plan, how I do that, what I think about, and how I repurpose. So that's coming in a couple weeks. Let me wrap up by sharing with you a couple other tips to be thinking about. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Even if you're watching me on the recording, by the way, say hi so I can come back and thank you for watching. But drop any questions that you have for me. If I don't answer them today, I will queue them up for one of the upcoming weeks, okay? Here are some other tips, though, to be thinking about. actually create a calendar or a process. Now, I've done this both ways. I have done it, I actually have one of those desk calendar pads, and that's where I map out my Facebook Lives every week. And but I've also used a calendar to map out content like by theme day that I was sharing with you. I'm moving more into Asana. You guys, if you followed me for any length of time, know that I use Asana to manage everything for me and my team and my business. And for every Facebook Live I do, I should have counted. There's maybe 30 tasks associated with my Facebook Live. We do these every single week, from me planning the topic to creating the promotion content to having my graphic designer create all the images for me for the blog, for everything, right? So all the images associated with it. Then what do I do after the face? Oh, including scheduling it in Ecamm, creating the event in my group, like every single thing, every single week. And then all the stuff that I do with the lives after. So whatever it is you do, create whatever tool that you use that works for you so that you can repeat it without thinking about it. Okay? Janet says Asana is awesome. Yes. Oh, Janet uses Asana and set you up with an editorial calendar. Ooh, she's a genius with it. Janet, we might have to have you come be a guest expert inside my group, The Messaging Den, and share some of your valuable wisdom with us. If you are interested in doing that, let me know, okay? That's awesome. And I love learning new ways to use Asana. So, yeah, I would love to know more about that. Okay, but use a calendar, a task, whatever was going to help make that easy for you week to week, okay? One of my best tips, and I'm not the only one who's going to share this with you, you're going to hear this time and time again from a lot of people, but batch create your content. Now, that doesn't mean sit down and brainstorm everything all at once, write everything, plan everything all in one sitting. But what it does mean is whenever you sit down to do one of those tasks, do it for more than one item. So, for example, I planned out the whole month of July's Facebook Lives all at once. Now, that started with, I mapped out the topic for every week to make sure there's 5 weeks in July, so I want to take advantage of that. So I mapped out the topics. Then I might separately sit down and I sort of map out at a high level what content goes where. I didn't do that all in one sitting, but when I do it in batches. When I write social media content, I usually create 5 to 10 posts at a time. Now, sometimes I just get inspired to do something and that's okay. But I know, like, if I'm creating a new series of content that I want to be able to cycle in, then I will batch create that all at once. Okay. Janet says, would you be willing to share your Facebook Live process? And Cheryl says, I'd love to see that. Yeah, you know what? I'm thinking I'm going to do that as a bonus behind the scenes video inside the Messaging Den. So I will go into that in more detail with you guys, maybe in a couple weeks. So 2 weeks from now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to create and repurpose, but then I'll bonus a live inside the Messaging Den where I'll open up Asana and show you my actual process and all the steps. Be happy to do that. Yeah. Okay. Batch produce your content was the next tip. And then for your own social media profiles, for social media content, use a scheduling tool. This is like, if you're not doing this already, you're making it harder for yourself than you need to be. And there are plenty that are free to get started. But on your Facebook business page, if you have your own Facebook group, Instagram, LinkedIn, even Pinterest, I think you can schedule your content. So you can batch create. Let's say you create 30 pieces of content. You're going to have a couple pieces go out a week or once every day. Sit down and schedule that all at once and know that you have good content going out every single day or every week on whatever that schedule is, so that you're free to serve your clients, get more strategic about the next batch of client, right? So schedule everything that you can. Now, I will say you cannot schedule into other people's social media platforms. So you can't schedule using a tool into other people's Facebook groups, for example. So for that, you want to have a process to manage that. I will show you how to do that. I'll talk to you about the plan about how I do that inside the messaging den as well. Yeah, Cheryl, what free tool does Instagram? Buffer goes to Instagram now. And well, Social Bee is not free. Recur Post I know for sure Buffer does though, because I leverage Buffer. Social Bee uses the Buffer integration to go to Instagram, but check that out. Okay. All right. And then when you're creating your content, one of the things to think about is it's not a one-time use, right? So I'm going to talk more about repurposing and overall planning in a couple weeks, but create an initial set of content. I actually teach this to my clients. I have a whole social media intro series is what I call it, but it's about creating your initial batch of content. It can be 15 posts, 30 posts, like you can build on it over time and cycle it. Nobody sees all your stuff, so don't be afraid of reusing your content over and over and over again. Even if people see it more than once, guess what? You're just reinforcing your message, right? So don't be afraid to reuse and recycle your content over and over. And as you build your library, the time in between one post kind of going out again is going to lengthen, right? If you start with 15 pieces of content and you share once a day, I don't do it on weekends, so it's just weekdays for me. That's 3 weeks of content. If I have 60 pieces of content though, that's 12 weeks. That's 3 months of content. No, that's wrong. 60 pieces of content, 60 pieces of content. Oh, I guess it is, right? It's nearly 3 months worth of content. Trying to do math on the fly. Not that I should do that, but yeah, Cheryl, check out Buffer. It has an Instagram integration. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. I went even longer. You guys, I intended for this to stay short and sweet in 15 minutes, but we were having such a great discussion. So thanks for hanging with me. Those are some of my best tips as you start to plan for your content. Over the next couple weeks, we're going to take that even further. Next week, we're going to talk about types of content and how to choose. And there was a really great question that somebody posed in my group about should you create content specific to a platform or should you drive to a centralized platform? And I'm going to tackle that question next week. So bring any questions that you have around blogging versus videos versus social media posts versus whatever you can think of. Bring your questions next week about types of content, how to choose and what to do with them. And I'll be breaking it all down right here next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. In the meantime, don't settle for sounding like everybody else. Make sure the content that you put out there helps you stand out, helps you get heard. Make your message roar. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.